Callie versus Virgilius, Valencina, Rain, and Matthias. A 1v4 for the internet and the Project Moon community. Who would win this totally unrealistic fight? Many say Callie wins light work. The strongest picture of history does not lose today. I have a different opinion on the matter. And to explain why, would require at least a lot of research and discussion about how strength works in Project Moon and so on and so forth. But for this video, we're going to cut a lot of that down. We're going to keep it down to just the bare necessities, but all that stuff is related, okay? So just follow me here. This video is going to be not overly detailed, but we're going to lock in, all right? I got an answer. I got a good one, all right? I'm a doctor. Thank you. Anyway, let's look at one side of the arena. Our main combatant in the star of Project Moon itself, the Red Mask. Callie. She who needs little introduction, dead long ago, whose story ended in the outskirts, killed by an arbiter. She is known as the strongest fixer, known in the city for her main feat of being 5 proxies and 3 messengers all at once, all from the index. Amongst us, readers who know her full back, we know that her greatest feat is defeating 2 claws, suppressing a lot of abnormalities. I would say all, but all abnormalities of L Corp or the main facility, and killing an arbiter, all in one extended fight by herself before dying. Truly a feat that puts her above all others in the city, in Project Moon in general, for the most part, at least any individual. She is essentially insurmountable, truly a woman of power, and essentially undefeatable, at least in a 1v1. We'll get into that in a second. But that said, that's Callie, not Gebra. We're not talking about anything post Sephira transformation. All right, this question was asking about Callie, so there we go. That's one side. I would then go into our other side, but actually we don't need to get there. Why? Because it's a lot to scale. All right, there's 4 different characters to go through. It's a lot. And also, we don't need to get that far because the 4-win. I feel like it's pretty fair to say that the 4-win. I would even say it's like the obvious answer when you think about it. And here's why. In a 1v4, the question becomes, is the 1 so much stronger than the 4 that the numbers advantage doesn't matter? To that, I would say, in the current timeline, right, where we're at currently in the story of Project Moon, versus where we leave off Callie and her feats, current 4 characters are close enough to that Callie's strength that in a 1v4, they probably win more times than losing. Do they lose potentially sometimes like out of 1 to 10 times fighting? How many times do they win? Like maybe 6 or 7. Not that joke. Don't get away from me. Anyway, back on topic. I think the 4 win more likely. There's a couple different reasons, and the reasons are going to start with, or go back to, Callie. Her feats. 5 proxies, 3 messengers. These probably equivalent around to being between Soto Capo to Capo levels of strengths in terms of, if you want to compare it to Thumb, members of the Thumb, which is a little bit easier to imagine because, you know, those are pretty firmly distinguished based on strength and capabilities and fame alone. And I would say that proxies and messengers, particularly proxies, are so decently strong. So defeating essentially 8 very strong combatants alone is, I mean, that's a big feat. There's not really much to take away from that, but just to put in perspective the level of strength of that one feat, roughly around the levels of beating like a couple of different Ricardos in strength. Then we take the bigger feat, right? We take that one, shelve it. 2 claws, bunch of abnormalities, and an arbiter. Now, you can't take away the claw or the abnormalities. Those are just straight feats. There's nothing really to say about those, for the most part. Besides, what makes the arbiter feat kind of not count. It counts, but it doesn't count. Kelly Loki won a fluke. I know. That's controversial to say, but we gotta look at the story and discuss what happened. Okay? Garyon was in fact not trying. She essentially never is. Why? Because arbiters are too broken. They have that I'm the strongest in heaven and earth, blah 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 blah. You know, that Gojo Sukuna mentality, okay? She's just cocky as hell. Because of this, she's not actually trying to kill Callie at the time they're fighting, especially when we consider the fact that Callie is super worn out by the time she gets to Garyon, that it kind of doesn't, she's not registering that Callie is still a threat, which is why when Callie kills Garyon, it is essentially pointed out to be essentially a sneak attack. Not really, but sort of, because Garyon did not know the depth of Callie's bag because of ego, right? Which was something brand new that no one really knew about at the time. That said, the reason why this is a feat taken away is not just because of sneak attack, but we actually have a coinciding feat that clarifies that yes, that in fact was a fluke. That being that later on in Lobotomy Corporation, there is a spiritual rematch between Garyon and Callie, that being Gabura and Bina, and Bina is able to beat/hold off Callie. Callie by proxy Gabura. Point being that Bina wins, and she specifically points it out to be in part because she knows about ego this time around versus before she did not, which is why he's considered anti-fight. Why I cannot say, hey, Callie beat an arbiter, she's low-key too goated to be stopped. Is she very goated and low-key too goated to be stopped? Indeed. Stronger than arbiter? Certainly not. This is where we get into, like, if I really want to, I'd branch off and talk about strength in the city and how corporations are simply unbeatable, period. But that's not what we're talking about. We're just talking about a 1v4. Now, let's now look at our group of 4. These 4 combatants, for easier comparison, are high-end color level. Just looking at the nurse fathers alone, we have a firmly Star of the City level combatant, right? That's his claim, Rain's claim to fame. We have a hero of the first Smoke War, Valentina, who was able to beat the major bioweapon of one of the major bioweapons of G Corp, essentially single-handedly. The weapon had a couple of debuffs, but essentially single-handedly beat this extremely powerful enemy by herself. Okay? And then we have Matthias, whose claim to fame is mostly his fight from Limbus Company, I would say, just off basic research, which would be him fighting a new color. 2 high levels, veterans of the Smoke War, and 3, we could probably say, roughly high level Soldado to low level Capo Spinners, and holding his own to the bitter end. Not winning by any means. He lost for sure, but that's pretty high level. That's a pretty high level fight right there, right? Especially considering that the team he was fighting against had good coordination. All right. This is 3 of them, and then we have Virgilius, who is the current holder of the red color and known as the most dangerous fixer as of right now. All right, being known as the most dangerous fixer is not the strongest fixer, and no one's necessarily putting him above Callie in individual strength, but him having that title kind of puts him around at least the echelon of some of the greatest to ever do it. That's just a given. All right, if he has that title, that's kind of just a fact. Okay, these are our 4 combatants, 4 mid to high end color fixer fighters. Star of the City, very, very strong guys. All right, in a 1v4, the 4 having 4, let's break out 1, Matthias. 3 of them having access to Shin/Mang, something that Callie doesn't even know about, right? Would not know about. But then also one of them having a very strong ego that also doubles as good support as well as being good for his power. I'm just gonna be honest. There is no way in hell Callie wins this 1v4. It's simply unreasonably hard for her to do it. For comparison, when we look back at that 5 proxy and 3 messengers fight, right? The undisputed claim of Callie's strength that basically is kind of point out just how unbelievably, unreasonably undefeatable the Red Mist is. I feel like that's something that our current group, like our group of 4, could absolutely do kind of individually. Maybe not on the same level, but achieve something close to it. And I look at Matthias. I think he could probably knock down 2 to 3 proxies and the same amount of messengers. So 3 messengers, 3 proxies on his own in a straight fight. Now, would he be better to all help? Probably. But here's the thing. He's not fighting alone. He's fighting with 3 other similarly strong people at his side, plus buffs from Virgilius against 1 woman, the strongest fixer for sure. Oh, 1 woman. Not only that, but also we have a Valentina with her Odin's Eye, her relic, that allows her to, as the fight goes on, gradually get better and better at being able to dodge and read the attacks of her opponent, which would, especially against a character like Gebra, who's a fairly simple fighter, very strong, very fast, not to be questioned in that regard. Absolutely, as we saw Virgilius versus Valentina, probably able to outspeed her and probably make the eye kind of hard to use in and of itself. But someone who can do that over the course of a fight where she's playing with 3 other people assisting her. Are you seeing where I'm going with this? It's simply odds that are kind of unreasonable to expect Callie to win on her own, considering that the 4 have access to buffs that she simply does not have access to, as well as the fact that her claims to fame, Callie specifically claims to fame, simply aren't things undoable by our cast. By our group of 4, individually, these are not things so far out of the realm of possibility for them to do. I mean, I feel like individually, each one of these characters could replicate a sizable portion, let's say roughly 50 to 70%, maybe 80% each of her feats. But then we have 4 of these characters working together in tandem just to beat the person who was able to accomplish these feats by themselves. It kind of gets to the point where it's like, yeah, I think it's possible. And then with the 50 to 80%, then we say there's 4 of them. And there's 4 of them versus 1 woman. That's simply too much. Too much for her. She cannot do it. Plain and simple. That's just how I see it. How I see it, she can't do it. Her feats simply do not allow her to beat 4 characters of 4 characters of this level of strength by herself. I just don't see it. And that's basically it. That's basically my thoughts on the fight. given again, am I scaling off pixels? Am I looking at, no, I'm not doing all that, because that require at least 3 to 4 videos worth of work, all to put in one video, when I can make that into 3 to 4 different videos. Okay, I can make that's 3 to 4 different video ideas right there. I'm not doing all that, and I don't need to, because simply Hallie, the characters she's going against are simply too strong. This is not Jujutsu Kaisen. This is not Gojo or Sukuna, where it's like the strongest character, which Hallie's not actually the strongest character in the Project Moon verse. I'm just gonna put that out there, just throwing it out there, saying controversial things all day. Not the strongest character in Project Moon. That aside, Hallie, strongest character, quote unquote, is simply not fighting scrubs and weaklings that she could easily whoop, like, you know, in 2 seconds. You know, swing her sword and split them in half. This ain't greater split horizontal easy victims. Okay, these are very strong combatants working together to fight just her by herself. Simply, it's too much. It's just unreasonable. It's just unreasonable. Anyway, so there we go. There's your answer to the discourse. No need to worry. The doctor has returned to provide good knowledge. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you guys in another video, as there's still much to discuss about the Project Moon universe and its discussions on strength and who is strong, who is not, and what is the strongest, and why it's not fixers almost ever, probably not really any individuals, any normal individuals at all. We probably haven't even seen the strongest things the city has to offer at all. But that's a topic to discuss at another time. For today, the doc is out. Peace.